Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to In the Kitchen with Diabetes Cancer, brought to you by Manulife. And I am Marilyn Smith. I'm a professional home economist. One day in about another year, I'm going to be able to say, and Masters of Science, Human Nutrition, but I can't say it yet. So you never heard this. I am also the author of Peace, Love, and Fiber, the best book that you can buy or give yourself as a gift because fiber is your friend if you're living with diabetes. Actually, fiber is your friend for everything. So anyway, I hope you can grab the book. It's available at Chapters, Indigo. It's available online at Amazon and Indigo or any bookstore, but they might have to order it in. But anyway, so there's that. And I'm going to make one pot dinner, one pot stew, one pot, whatever this heck is, a soup or a stew. We're going to talk about it. Take it away, Katie.
Thanks, Marilyn. Hello, everyone. I'm Katie Brunke. I am a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, good friend of Marilyn's. And yeah, just really happy to be back again for week 3. I'm still wearing Blue Jays blue and will continue to do so until other things happen. We'll see how that shakes out. Today's nutrition theme is label reading. So we're going to talk about some of the new stuff that's happening, and there will be time for questions and answers and all of that fun stuff. Over to you, Kayla.
Thanks, Katie, and welcome back to week 3. For those of you who are joining for the first time, my name is Kayla Runka, and I work on our education team here at Diabetes Canada, and I'll be your moderator. This week is week 3 of our 4-week series, and tonight's theme is plate method soups and stews. And as Marilyn mentioned, we'll be cooking one very delicious one-pot Greek chicken, kale, and sweet potato stew. We've had rave reviews on this from everyone who's tried it, so hopefully you will download the recipe and give it a try yourself. We also have 2 bonus recipes for you, a hearty beef barley mushroom soup and a veggie-packed soba noodle soup. The how-to segment today is take a can and make a meal. We came up with this one because we all lead such busy lives and sometimes we're also under the weather. And so occasionally it's good to have a few balanced meal ideas that you can quickly pull together from your pantry or your freezer. And so Marilyn's going to show you a few examples of that so you know what to have on hand for those times. And bonus is the ideas are also budget friendly. On top of the recipes, our education topic, as Katie mentioned, is reading labels, and the resources brought to you by Novo Nordisk. Last but not least, events like this would not be possible without the support of our generous partner. In the Kitchen is proudly brought to you by our presenting partner, Manulife, and we extend our heartfelt thanks to Manulife for their ongoing commitment to the diabetes community and their dedication to helping Canadians live longer, better, and healthier lives. I'm going to get Katie to just give a quick recap about what plate method is, or otherwise known as the balanced plate. So Katie, I'll turn it over to you while I leave the poll up and then we'll get started.
Sounds good. So you guys have probably all seen some version of this at some time or another. That is the balanced plate or the plate method. It is based on Canada's food guide, and it is a wonderful way to make sure that you are getting enough nutrition, you're balancing your meals with lots of non-starchy vegetables. So we're talking 50% of your meal is non-starchy vegetables, the other 25% as lean protein sources. That could be anything from chicken, fish, eggs, or plant-based protein. So really important to also include those on a very regular basis. So things like tofu, beans, legumes, all that good stuff. So that's 25% of your meal. And then the other 25% is our starch or our whole grain category. And this is where we want to pay attention to portion size, especially when we're trying to manage blood sugars. Aiming for about a fist size of something like sweet potato or whole grain can help you to achieve more balanced blood sugars. And also think about adding some healthy fat to your balanced plate as well. That can add a lot of flavor, a lot of nutrition, and help to manage blood sugars. So the key pieces to the balanced plate are lots of non-starchy vegetables. Make that kind of the star of the show. Go for color. So if you can include more than one color, you're really winning at life. Get 25% protein and 25% as your starch or whole grain choice. And that is going to do wonders for your health.
All right, I'll just pop in quickly just to say that just for reference sake, about 2/3 follow the balanced plate. So that's great. The recipes from today all fit that balanced plate in the form of soups and stews. So you'll enjoy these recipes quite a bit. And then I think the next closest one is a low carbohydrate diet. So I will turn it over to you, Marilyn.
All right. Well, I am in love with this whole category because you know what? We're all really busy, and to be able to just have one pot in your house that gets kind of mucked up when you're cooking is a win. So this is called a Greek chicken, kale, and sweet potato stew. Sweet potato, and is it potato or potato? Anyway, potato. And is it a soup or is it a stew? We'll ask you about that later. So I've already browned the chicken, okay, because that was going to take some time. So it's really important that when you're making a soup or a stew that you want to add layers of flavor. And so the chicken was cut into about 1 to 2 inch little chunks and then tossed in flour. And if you're living a gluten-free lifestyle, you can totally use cornstarch, but make sure that it says gluten-free because although cornstarch is naturally gluten-free, it could be processed in a gluten in a non-gluten-free facility. So you want to make sure that it says gluten-free on the package. Okay. So if that's what you're living, that's great. You could use whole wheat flour if you wanted to, but it's going to add the color to the chicken. I'm not going to throw this one in raw. I'll just put this over here. Okay, just Siobhan, will you put that in the fridge later? All right, Marilyn, what am I? I'll do it for you. Of course I will. Okay. It's really early and she's already got a bad attitude. All right, so the beginning of the recipe called for 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil, but then it says to divide it. So you put the 1 tablespoon in for the chicken, you brown it until it's beautiful. Then you take it out of the pan and you add the rest of the oil. And then you're going to be adding a whole ton of what they call flavorful vegetables. So I've got basically 1 cup of diced onion. I'm going to turn my pan up. And then I have 1 cup of diced celery. This is like a plethora of the vegetables. And when Katie was talking about the balanced plate, like 50% we're going to have the vegetables. And then it's 1 cup of diced carrots. And what do they call that in French cooking? Somebody remind me. Are they not the Holy Grail or the three wonderful? I don't know. They
Mirepoix.
Thank
Mirepoix.
you. Mirepoix. Thank you. Merci. Okay, good. I had a brain fart. Anyway. Oh, speaking of which, no, never mind. Anyway, so when you're sauteing them, I think it's a really important note. There was all the bits was left on the bottom of the pot. Now, when the bits are left in the bottom of the pot, there are two things. If you don't scrape them up, you're going to have sticking. And also, you're not getting all those flavors. And so I call all those little bits flavor bombs. So I'm scraping this up as I'm sauteing so that I'm going to prevent the soup, the stew, whatever this is, from sticking. But I'm also adding that as a flavor, those little enhancements. And now you could have just thrown all this stuff in a pot and added the liquid and cooked it. But by going to this extra little step of browning the meat, of sauteing the vegetables, then you're adding these layers of flavors because these are really simple and it's economical. Celery, carrots, onions are pretty much economical. Whenever chicken thighs come on sale, I buy them and I cut them into chunks already. Because I know I'm going to put them either into a stir fry or I'm going to put them into a stew right now. So I'm already pre-prepped. Okay, we talked about that last week about, or maybe it was the first week, about having things pre-prep. I think that's such an important thing for our time. Okay, so now normally, but because of the time restraints, I would have cooked this for about 5 minutes. I'm going to let it cook for a couple more before I do the next layer. The next vegetable that's going to go in it is sweet potatoes. And I am a big fan of peel, as you know, as the self-proclaimed queen of fiber. Hello, hello, hello. The peel is really good. So the sweet potato has soluble fiber, but the outside is insoluble. So you get this double package of yum. So scrub them really well, and then you chop them, but you're not going to dice them. So they should look like, they should look bigger, okay? Now, the bigger you make everything, the chunkier it is, but the longer it takes to cook. So if you want to make this faster, you could actually make everything small, but it's your call. So you get to be the creative goddess and god in your own kitchen. I'm going to add the garlic now. I didn't add it right away because I wanted to get these guys a little bit softer. And I am a huge fan of garlic. I always think that, whenever I use garlic, we're not going to have any vampire attacks because I use that much. But there's just 2 cloves of garlic in this, and I just chopped it up pretty well. Now, remember we talked, I think you'll remember, I'm using my finger. I'll be right back because now I stink like garlic. All right. Okay, Marilyn, she's just washing her hands again. And she's a bit of a hand cleaning freak, which is a good thing because food safety is so important and you don't want to. Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off. I think she was going to say stink like garlic. Anyway, just reading her mind. So I'm just gonna saute the garlic in there. And as vegetables release some of their liquid, the bottom part of the pan gets easier to scrape the bits off. So it's all coming off just beautifully. Okay, now at this point, you add the chicken back and all the juices. So whatever's left, you're gonna add that right into the pan. And I'm gonna rush this over to the sink and hopefully not get any drips on the floor. Na 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 na. Look at that. Okay, exercising in the kitchen. All right, so then we're gonna mix the chicken in there, and then we're going to add. I think this is what I'm going to do. Yes, I'm going to add the sweet potatoes with the peel on, and I'm going to add the broth. Now, here's a big tip on I use unsalted. We talked about that last week. I don't add a lot of salt, but when I do, I use iodized salt. And in this recipe, it calls for 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt and 1/8 of a teaspoon of pepper. And this is my little salt pot that I keep at the side of my stove. And when I do add table salt because of the iodine, not any of those fancy schmancy salts, this is standardized, so we're getting iodine, and that's really important for your thyroid health. Then I've always got my little 1/8 of a teaspoon, and that would be all I would be ever adding to a dish is 1/8 of a teaspoon. So that's always on my counter. If you ever see any of my reels, you'll probably see that little thing of salt. So this has got no salt in it at all, no salt added. Where is it? Prepared in Canada, made with real ingredients. Yeah, no salt added chicken. So whenever you open it, when you open it, give it a shake. And then if you're not going to use the whole thing, you need to write. So this lasts for 14 days in your fridge, opened, not the date on the top. And I think that's really important because somebody would say, oh, this is going to last until 2028. No, you'll die if you use it in 2028 if it's been opened in your fridge for like 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. So just I was with it. So this is October the 28th is when I have to use it by. And I write it on the top too so that I won't miss it. All right, so I'm going to add the 2 cups of the chicken broth. And then now the recipe calls for 3 cups of water, but I don't like it as soupy. Now I've made this several times. The first time was more soupy, and the second time was half and half. And this time I'm going to only make it with a cup of water. Okay, so your call. 3 cups, 2 cups, or 1 cup. And we're gonna, whoops, it just went all over the place. So I'm just gonna put that in there. And then you would bring this to the boil, okay? But through the magic of my kitchen, I'm gonna take this off and I'm gonna bring this over. And oh, look, not only did it get bigger, the pot got bigger. It's boiling like a son of a gun. Okay, so now I'm going to get rid of this because this was sort of on the raw side. Okay, Marilyn, what do you want me to do? The dishes now? No, you can do them later. Okay, so I'm just going to mix this with a spoon. Oh, I forgot. You're supposed to put a bay leaf in the other one. So just one old bay leaf. You can put 2 in if you want. It calls for 2. That would make more sense. Anyway, so you're going to put the bay leaf, and that's just a little bit of hint of flavor too. So we'll throw that into that one, and we're going to cook that up. This is like a cauldron. Okay, so we're going to reduce that down. So when this is all, I hope you can see this, but it's pretty, this is with the 2 cups. So just tell each other in your little chat thing. So is it a soup or is it a stew? So we looked it up because we were having a conversation about this. And I think stews are really thick. And I like stew, like I like thicker stuff. But there's something called a soupy stew. So you can call it whatever you want, just eat it. Okay, moving on. All right, now we're going to have the next bunch of ingredients. And this is so once again, I try to go with no salt added. So you can get this is the blue menu from Loblaws, and blue menu doesn't have any added salt. Okay, so that's just a blanket statement, but it's a bit more expensive. So if you just buy the regular ones, if you rinse it once you've opened it, you can rinse it in a colander, and when the water runs clear, you get rid of about 40% of the extra sodium because they don't use sodium with iodine in canned food because it makes it cloudy. So you're just getting the salt. You're just getting sodium chloride. You're not getting the salt with the iodine. So I would rather add table salt that has iodine than use the salt in commercial foods, not commercial foods, in packaged foods. Okay, and then the next ingredient that's going to go in is kale. I love kale. I'm in love with kale. I use so much kale. I grow it, but we're almost through. And this is what I do. I'm going to just go get this for a minute. So what I do when I buy it, there's a couple of things I do. So when I bring it home, I don't wash it right away unless I'm going to do something big with it. But I take it out of the. Once again, I told you this guys before. I've told you this before. Take it out of the metal thing, the twisted tie, because that's going to trap the water. And then I just wrap it loosely in paper towel so that I'm not going to accelerate sliminess. Sliminess? Slime accelerator is what water is. And then I just pop it in the bag. Now, if I think I'm going to use a whole bunch that week, then I would wash that and then chop it up so I have it in a bag with a paper towel. And then, for instance, one of the other recipes I'm going to show you tonight, I just grab a handful of kale and threw it in. So it's already done. It's what we talked about, in the first week, having a lot of stuff prepared. And people are always like, well, how do I prepare kale? That was 2 cups of kale that I threw in there. I just want to show you. So once you've washed the leaf, this is just regular kale. They have dinosaur kale, which is darker. Sometimes it's called Tuscan. You just want to pull off the leaves from the stalk. And the reason is because the stalk is kind of bitter. And then you just roll it up, kind of like a cigar, and and then you just do like little ribbons, and that is perfection. Okay, so that's going to go into there too. We're going to stir.
Marilyn,
Yes,
sorry, I'm just going to jump in because we've got a lot of people um,
yes.
like me who are not lovers of kale asking what else you might put in there. And I have to admit, I mean, as a dietitian, I feel like I'm required to like kale, but I only like it cooked. I don't really enjoy it raw. So what are some of the other things you could use that would be similar in nutrient and fiber content and things like that?
That's a wonderful point. You brought up 2 great points. Raw does taste different than cooked. Cooked, it kind of, especially in a stew. So if you don't like kale and you put it in the stew, you're not even going to really notice because when it's cooked, it becomes very, very mild. So that's one thing. You could put in spinach. I always have spinach in my fridge. You could do, uh, this is a Canadian one. You could do this kind of spinach, or you could do, and I'm going to show you this later, or you could use frozen spinach, or you could use Swiss chard. And Swiss chard is really mild. In the flavor notes, it would go kale, spinach, Swiss chard. But they're all leafy greens and they're all giving you that folate, which is really good for brain health, really good for brain health. So you really need to be eating some kind of leafy green every single day. Okay, so I put the kale in here, and honest to gosh, I do throw it in salads because I like the way it tastes, but I cook with it all the time. And then the next ingredient that's going to go in there is dill. So once again, when you buy the dill, so how are you going to buy it? Well, are you going to buy a big bunch and then throw it out because it went rotting in your fridge? I use a lot of dill. So once again, I brought it home. I took it out of the little elastic or wire, and then I let it air dry on the counter before I rolled it up in paper towels and put it in a plastic bag. Or if you're not going to use that much and you're going to end up throwing it away, probably a better idea to just buy the small ones. And a lot of the grocery stores have small little amounts of dill. And we're just going to add a 1/4 cup. Now you can put the bottoms in if you want. I'm not going to because I want them to be kind of like airy and fluffy. And the dill goes in there too. And basically at this point, you're just heating everything through. And then we're going to add some fresh lemon juice. It's the juice of half of a lemon that gives it its real Greek kind of a flavor. If you don't like dill, you could use parsley. The dill is more authentic. Oh, look, I forgot to fish out, fish out the bay leaves. Yes, okay. All right, so now that's pretty much ready. There's a little bit of lemon zest, and I love lemon zest. You know, when you're cooking, and I'm not a person living with diabetes, but if we all cooked with less, salt and oil and all that kind of thing, we'd all be healthier. That's kind of a generalized statement. So this recipe has got layers of things. It's got the lemon juice, it's got the lemon zest, it's got all these like wonderful vegetables. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to scoop it out. Now, this is serves four. Like this is a bucket. So this is with the 2 cups, and I like this way better. I think the 1 cup's even going to be, my mouth is watering. So look at this hearty deliciousness. This is going to be probably about 2.5 cups. And then the pièce de résistance en le français is each serving gets a tablespoon of feta put on top of it, and dinner is ready. Now, you would have cooked this for the 20 minutes, just follow the recipe. But this one pot, let's say it all out loud, one pot. And you see with the, so this was the 2 cups of water and the 2 cups of broth. I'm curious to see what the 1 cup, it'll be really, really thick. So yeah, bon appetit. And this is your yum fest. Mm, mm, mm.
So,
Okay.
Marilyn, one question
Mhm.
before we go on to Katie, and then I'll let you set up for the how-to section.
Okay.
So, we have not discussed the one thing that everybody, but in particular those living with diabetes, should do after their meals to help manage their blood sugar. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, do I want to talk about this? Oh, yes, I do. Okay, so many, many years ago, I came up with this saying called the fart walk. And so the fart walk is basically rooted in science. And what that means is that after a meal, if you exercise, and I'm not talking going for a marathon, I'm talking just walking, what happens is that the blood, your glucose that is circulating in your body, your muscles grab it like a sponge, and they suck the glucose out of your blood, and that way you're not using as much insulin, and it's so good. It is like the best trick in the whole world. So if you walked after every single meal, just 10 minutes is all you need. 15 is even better, but you don't have to go for, like, it's not a big walk, it's not like a mission. And if you do that fart walk, your blood sugars will not be ricocheting around all over the place. And it's such a great tip. And I did a fundraiser last year, and I had hats made, fart walk, but they're not for sale anymore. Sorry, you missed out. Too bad for you. No, that's awful. But anyway, so yeah, so I walk. Scott has a T-shirt. We had T-shirts, and we gave money to diabetes as a result, as a fundraiser. Anyway, but fart walks work. They're rooted in science. They're good for your mental health. They're good for your digestion. That's why you're farting. It's good for GERD and acid reflux, but it's wonderful as a way to manage your blood sugars, or to reduce your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Thank you for asking.
My pleasure. And with that, Katie, I'll turn it over to you to talk about reading labels.
That's a hard one to top.
No kidding.
But yeah, couldn't agree more. Fart walks for the win. Another fantastic thing to do to not only help you manage your blood sugar, but to make really good nutritious choices is to start looking at your labels. So there's a couple different ways that you can interpret nutrition labels. Each prepackaged food is always going to contain a nutrition facts table. It's going to contain an ingredient list. And most recently, as of I believe it was July of 2022, we started to see front of package labeling that's come out. So you might start to notice that there's a magnifying glass, and it will say like sodium, saturated fat, or sugar. And what that is it's flagging that whatever that product is, it's going to be high in one of those things. And we know from plenty of research that foods that are high in sodium, saturated fat, and sugar are not good for us. They contribute to chronic diseases. And in turn, not only does that increase your chance of developing these things, it also costs the healthcare system a ton of money. So this is a way that you can make informed choices at a glance using this new tool that's on the package of foods that would contain these nutrients in high quantities. Not every package that needs this label has it yet. The food industry has until the end of this calendar year to implement it. So if you haven't seen it yet, you definitely will start by the end of the year. Also really important to look at the physical nutrition facts label on the back of any kind of packaging. So the things that we want to look at first and foremost is the portion size, because that is going to tell us how much of each nutrient is in that serving size. So start there and then work your way down. If you are somebody that's looking at calories because you're trying to eat in a calorie deficit or you're counting calories, you can take that into consideration. The big things I think for diabetes that are really important to look at are things like the fiber content. So more is always better. Do go slow, drink water, et cetera, et cetera. But fiber is something that we definitely want to see a higher amount of in products, and sugar is something that we want to see a lower amount of. So if looking at the number, the grams that is in the particular food item is confusing, go ahead and look at the percent daily value. So that's the percentage on the far right of the label. Anything that is 5% or less means that it's a little bit. Anything that's 15% or more means that it's a lot. So sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a not so good thing. When it comes to fiber, if you can find something that's 15% or more, winning at life. Definitely a good choice. If you are seeing a percentage for saturated fat that's 15% or more, that's not a great choice. That's going to be quite high in saturated fat, which we know is not great for our health. If you're somebody that is carb counting or learning how to carb count, looking at the total carbohydrates and minusing the fiber is going to give you the net carbs. And when we are aiming for a balanced diet to manage blood sugars, anywhere between 45 to 60 grams of carbs at a meal, provided that you're eating protein, healthy fats, and fiber-rich vegetables, that's a good amount to help keep your blood sugars stable. If it's something like a snack, little reminder from 2 sessions ago, aim for about 15 grams of carbohydrates. If you need a bigger snack, go for 30, try and get 7 grams of protein. These little tips and tricks can help stabilize blood sugar and keep you from having big highs and lows. So definitely taking into consideration the numbers you're seeing on the side of the package. The ingredients is also really important because that can tell you a lot about the quality of the product that you're getting. So looking for like whole ingredients. Don't be scared if you can't pronounce something. That doesn't mean that it's bad. That's a whole other topic, but do take a look at the ingredient list as well, and consider checking the front of the package to see if you can find any kind of symbol with a magnifying glass, because that's going to indicate right off the top that something's high in sodium, sugar, or fat.
I know some of the things that I wonder about sometimes and that have been asked about, and a few people have commented on in the Q&A. So the total carbs does not add up to the fiber and the sugar. So what is the difference between the total carbs? So starch, obviously. But how can they use that as a tool in terms of managing their diabetes? So that total carb, finding the net carbs, and then applying that kind of math.
Yeah, so look at the total carbs. That's going to include all components that make up the carbohydrate amount. So that's going to be fiber, sugar, starch. It might be sugar alcohols. If you're trying to find the net carbs, you would minus the fiber from the total carbs. If it does have something like sugar alcohols in it, you would take half of the amount of the sugar alcohols and minus that as well. So maybe there's a discrepancy there. I think too, like with labels, there can be a 20% variation with things. So if somebody's carb counting and like their carb to insulin ratio is a certain number, and maybe the portion that they ate didn't quite match what they were expecting, that could be a discrepancy between the serving size, or maybe like a slight variation with the labeling. So there's things like that that can make a difference. But yeah, ultimately, when it comes to looking at the carbohydrate content itself, we always want to try and find something that's high in fiber. So if it's like a grain-based product, try and look for something that's 4 grams or more for fiber. And if it's something that would contain sugar or added sugars, try your best to get something that's 8 grams or less, because that's going to give you the best kind of nutrient profile for carbohydrates.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I think, yeah.
Okay.
And then the other one is just around added sugar. So I believe the US is now putting added sugar on some of their newer nutrition facts tables and stuff. So we don't have that in Canada, but can you talk a little bit about natural versus added sugars? And for me, I know too, and I know we've had this in our virtual diabetes education program as well. Those products that say no added sugar doesn't necessarily mean that there is no sugar in the product, because of course, that difference between natural and added.
Yeah, so there's definitely a difference between naturally occurring sugar. You're going to find naturally occurring sugar in things like fruit, in milk or dairy products, and then things that have added sugar. There's been some form of sugar that's been physically added to that food product that's not naturally occurring. And these are the ones that we want to pay attention to in particular when we're having foods that have naturally occurring sugar in them. Oftentimes there's a lot of nutrition also in that food. So we want to think about the food as a whole. For something like fruit, for instance, some can have higher amounts of sugar than others, but you're getting a lot of fiber, you're getting a lot of antioxidants and vitamins and minerals. So the package itself is a lot more nutritious than having something like a candy bar that has added sugars and other ingredients that high in saturated fat. That's not great for us. So looking at what the food is, we don't need to be afraid of naturally occurring sugars, but we do need to take them into consideration, especially if you are trying to carb count or balance your sugars in a certain way. Added sugars are always they're kind of unnecessary, to be honest. Like they'll add flavor, they'll kind of hit a certain sweet point in foods, and it's really about palatability and trying to make a product desirable to the consumer. But there's not any really benefit to added sugar. So if we can try and reduce those as much as possible in our diet, that's a really good thing. And I think I actually have seen some products that do differentiate added sugars. And I know actually in Marilyn's book, when I did the nutrient breakdowns, we did include added sugars so people could differentiate kind of where that sugar is coming from. So it tells a more fulsome story about the meal, the food, etc.
That's great. Thanks, Katie. And Marilyn, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you. I was just getting my book out when Katie was talking about the added sugars, because the U.S. was going to be doing the added sugars on the nutrition facts table. I wanted to be ahead of the game, so I got Katie to do that. So all the recipes have like the total amount of sugar, and then they show the added, so you would know what was natural and what was not. So we were ahead of the wave once again, and Canada has still not caught up. Okay, so. That soup stew thing is delicious. And I just want to say that, we're going into that comfort food era, like, or season rather era. I think we are actually, good point. That was a slip, but I think it was actually pretty good. So these are all kind of comfort food. So, okay, this is how I eat a lot. I eat Buddha bowls all the time, but I always have stuff in my pantry. And I did a whole series way back on my Instagram. If you're not following me, please follow Marilyn, Mairly, and Smith on Instagram. Lots of information. So we waste 40% of our food because we buy it and then we throw it out. All right. So I always encourage people to shop their pantry, their fridge, and their freezer before they make their grocery list. And this was all in my pantry and my freezer and my fridge. And so if we did that more often, we would waste less food and we can still make nutritious food. So this one is for you. You got a cold, all right. You feel like death warmed over. You don't feel like cooking, but you've got some broth, unsalted broth in your pantry. You have a package of ravioli in your freezer. I always have a package of these for emergencies. And to Katie's point, there's the magnifying glass with it says it's higher in sodium. So that is something you need to know when you're using packages or cans or all that. They usually have more sodium. So the no sodium in this is really good. It kind of balances it out. So I cooked the tortellini in the broth, and then I added frozen spinach and I added a little bit of Italian seasoning. And I have this sort of yum soup for like when I'm feeling sick. And you can get the spinach either individually. I like this one. I think this is from Sobeys. So they have these like little bullets. So that's neat because then, if you're just cooking for one or you're cooking for two, that's really convenient. Or Loblaws sell them in big chunks. So this is two chunks in a package. So this would be more for like a bigger meal. But I have both of these in my freezer at all times. Now the next one is kind of like a pasta dish. Pasta is very comforting as long as you don't cook the heck out of it. I nearly swore. And when I choose pasta, I like the whole wheat, but my husband's a bit ugh. So anyway, we use the smart pasta. So it tastes like white pasta, but it has resistant starch in it. And so it's got more fiber. And as long as you sort of undercook it, and that's what we need to do. We need to not cook the heck out of it because it raises up the glycemic index. So I made the pasta in some broth. This is a really interesting, I don't work for Elmer, but they should hire me. These accents, these cans of tomatoes are already seasoned. They're really, really wonderful in a pinch. And then so I added that. I added a can of chickpeas because my name is Marilyn Smith. And I added some garlic powder. I didn't even cut up any garlic. I just added powder. And then I put in some French cut green beans. Okay, so those two. Now here's one of my husband's favorite. This is chopping out of my freezer. Totally. So whenever I do, we've talked about this, I cook whole grains. I always freeze some. So I'm going to wash this package out and I'm going to use it again for grains. But this had extra lean cooked beef in it. Now I cook the beef and then I freeze it for emergency dinners. This is this is like the easiest emergency dinner you'll have. So and I would throw this bag away, even though it had cooked protein. I don't think I can get all the stuff out of it. So I would wash this with soap. So all I did was throw in the barley and the already cooked ground beef. I added a little bit of I always have these little tiny concentrates of there was beef broth. And then I discovered this a little while ago. These are packages of frozen mixed vegetables, and this is called Summer, and this is from PC, and it's got all there's red and yellow peppers, asparagus, and carrots. So those are all non-starchy veg. So you have non-starchy veg, you got barley, and you got beef. And the beef has zinc in it, and zinc is good for when you want to support your immune system. And your vegetables are good because of the antioxidants, and the barley is good because it's supporting your GI, and your GI is connected to your immune. This is a genius bowl, okay? All right, and the last one is what we had for dinner last night because I go to university on Tuesdays, and we don't get home until around 7:30 at night because we drive to Guelph. We, as in my husband, I sit in the car and sometimes cry. But anyway, this is shakshuka, and this is a go-to at our house. We have this, well, we have it pretty much every Tuesday night now because we're coming home from school. And so what you do is you just get like a little skillet. This is where the magical pots are. So you get a little skillet. It is like so cinch, and you open a can of Elmer's. And yes, if anyone works for them, they should hire me. You pour the whole thing in there, and now if you want, you could dice up onion and garlic and mushrooms, whatever. But if you're just really quick, you just throw that can of stuff in there, and then when it bubbles, you just make a hole and you crack the eggs into it. and you put a lid on it and you poach it in that tomato sauce until the eggs are your desired runniness. Okay. Scott likes his hard. So I put his in early and then I put mine in after. And then it comes out and I put green onion on top. So I'm getting the vegetables from the tomato, and I threw kale in it. Of course I did. So then that's when I would reach in and put a couple of handfuls of this into the tomatoes, crack the eggs, cook the egg, and then sprinkle a little bit of feta, just a teeny bit, and serve it with a whole wheat pita. This is so comforting. And when I'm really crabby, this is my go-to. So I should be eating this a lot. Anyway, so there you go. 4 easy. You can pull this off. I'm cheering for you. Please, if you do follow me, and I'm loving that the people who do follow me are sending me, they're DMing me their pictures of what they made. And I'm like, "Yes," because we kind of work in a void because we don't really know what you're doing. And so if you share and then you're accountable to me and I'm accountable, it's a win. So sharing is caring. So please send me your pictures. You make my day. I just don't want to think I'm talking to myself on my computer. All right. Although, no, I'm seeing the hearts. All right. Oh, thank you. All right. That's all I got.
We're going to have to figure out something. Everybody last week and this week all want the recipes for everything in the bowls. Last week the bowls, this week the bowls. So we'll have to, maybe you can post a picture and repeat the ingredients on your Instagram feed or
Well,
something,
that,
Marilyn.
that that's a great idea. No, that's a great idea. Okay. All right. Where's my
So I
camera?
I have a few. So if you have other questions, please post them in the Q&A. Marilyn, do you want to just quickly repeat your Instagram account
Yeah.
because a few people have asked?
So Marilyn is spelled Mairlyn. So that's Marilyn Smith. There's a little bit of my Irish coming out of me. Yeah, and yeah, it's really fun. The last little while, I haven't been posting as many food pictures because I've been going to university, but I decided that I'm going to do a whole series in a couple of weeks on cooking for two because of the feedback we've gotten here at Diabetes Canada. And I think it's really important to show smaller meals. And so I'm going to do a series Monday to Friday, cooking for two. I just have to get the time to do that. So anyway, pray for me. Anyway, all
All
right.
right.
Okay,
I
thank you for asking.
I have a couple questions for Katie,
All
and then I'll
right.
keep checking the Q&A as well. So there's some wondering on are like honey maple syrup better choices than sugar to use?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, at the end of the day, they're all going to respond in a very similar way. They're going to increase blood sugar. There might be some slight differences on the glycemic index, but not much. With honey, there can be, depending on the type of honey you're getting, there might be some additional little nutrients you're getting. But ultimately, they're going to have the same impact. So the choice is yours.
Can I weigh in?
Yes, go
Go
ahead.
for it.
Okay, so people go, oh, but there's all these nutrients in honey and maple syrup. You'd have to eat like a gallon of it to actually get those. So um, if somebody tells you there's all these nutrients in it, yeah, they're not lying. It's just that you would have to eat so much of it to benefit from it. It'd be better to eat like a healthy food and have. So yes. Okay, that's all I had to say.
Perfect. And then the next question is around pasta. So there's been some questions around lower carbohydrate pastas. Can you just talk a little bit about some of the options that are out there, but also maybe what the balanced plate plays in terms of controlling your carbohydrate digested after a meal as well?
Of course. Yeah, there are so many new pastas on the market. Like every time I go to the store, I'm seeing something different. So, you've got your traditional sort of pastas. Now we also have ones with added protein, added fiber. They might be bean based. They could be made from things like, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the name. But it's like a
Lentils.
shirataki noodle. There's like
Oh yeah.
so many different pastas. And I'm with Marilyn with regards to finding the ones with the highest fiber. Protein can be helpful. I think, like, consider what your budget is. You don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money on pasta to still have a great meal and also manage your blood sugars. when it comes to any kind of starch or carbohydrate, that 25% of your meal being represented by the carbohydrate is what's going to help with your blood sugar management. So portions do matter, size matters, as Marilyn says. And then I know everyone's been really excited too about things like resistant starch. So that can also be a way to lower the glycemic impact of something like pasta. So if you cook and then cool and then gently reheat, or have like a pasta salad, you're gonna lower the glycemic index or glycemic load of that meal. So portions, 25% of your meal. Doing things like cooking and cooling can help. And I've also seen some research around like the way that you eat your food. So having your fiber rich foods first, and then having your protein, and then having your carbohydrate can also help to lower the glycemic load. So there's little tips and tricks. You can absolutely still have your pasta. Just think about portion, how you're going to cook it, budget, all of those things.
Yeah, and I think too, I always think about that while I'm eating my pasta because, a lot of people would maybe just have pasta with meat sauce. But so the protein's there, but the fiber's missing. So it is rounding out that whole meal. And so I consciously now, when I'm eating my pasta, I'll take a bite of my broccoli and then I'll eat my pasta and then I'll have some of my protein. So the mixture of how you eat also matters, I think, when
For
it comes
sure.
to all of that as well.
For sure. And that's what made that fantastic mac and cheese recipe so great last year, was
Oh,
adding
the
all of
cauliflower.
those veggies.
Yeah.
Because we were
Yeah.
doing half your plate veggies in that one pot mac and cheese meal, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And that cauliflower, I mean, it disappeared. It was such a great recipe. And Kayla, I love what you did with it. So it was like one of my favorite things, honestly. Yeah, and I do it all the time now. It's such a nice little hook. I think that the recipe's on is on the website still, on Diabetes Canada's website. Can I just go back to this tortellini thing?
Yes.
So in the tortellini, I haven't done it this year yet, but I always freeze garlic. So I get garlic cloves, I peel them, and then I puree them up in oil, and I put them in little tiny like ice cube trays, and then I freeze it and then I cook with it. I would never eat it raw because you could get because it's gone raw into the oil, so it only in a cooked thing. But because garlic is so good when you've got a cold, I would throw some garlic into this tortellini, but I hadn't done it yet. And if you want to go all gourmet, you could even grate some of the ginger in. So you've got ginger, garlic, tortellini, spinach soup, and like hashtag winning. So you can be creative in your kitchen. And I think a lot of us get scared or we're intimidated that, oh no, we're going to muck it up. You know what? No, you're not going to muck it up. Like taste as you go. Like don't just dump a whole bunch of things in. So dump a little bit, taste. I think it needs a little bit more. And so I think that, that cooking literacy is because it's trial and error. I mean, when I first started writing cookbooks, there's a lot of stuff I threw out because I was like, well, that was good in my head, but it sure didn't translate. So it's hit my, I mean, I've been cooking a long, long time. So yes, I'm really getting on anyway. So yeah, so I just think, feel comfortable, get your confidence in the kitchen. Just do it. Just go in there, bravely go where no man has gone before, and just do it. Okay. Yes.
Huge thank you to both Marilyn and Katie. I am trying really hard not to laugh with Marilyn trying to figure out her volume. I can't believe it. But next week is our last class for the series for now, and we are talking about nothing but desserts next week. So make sure you join us. And the how-to next week's a really good one too. We'll be talking about breakfast and how to add some variety to your usual oatmeal breakfast. So some new ways with cooking with oats. So hope to see you all then, and have a great evening, everyone.